Boston College has their bowl destination, and they're heading to Annapolis to face the ECU Pirates. We're going to get all into this game and talk about all the intricacies of the ECU Pirates with Mitch Wolfe today. All of this and more on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black. There's a lot of sports to talk about today. On today's show, we're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about basketball. And of course, on Mondays, we are joined by Mitch Wolfe, who is here to talk about the bowl destination for the BC Eagles, who are going to be heading to Annapolis, Maryland to play in the Military Bowl. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm back on the Monday show now that I'm feeling a little better, and bought my flight to from back home from Annapolis, basically. So I'll be in attendance this game. And this is a game that I've wanted BC to go to for many years. So I'm very excited they can finally, go to Annapolis.
So this is a game I think a lot of Boston College fans have to be a little bit excited because, as I said on Twitter, the feeling going into bowl season for the last year has been Boston College is just going to be saddled with the Fenway Bowl every year because everyone felt the Fenway Bowl was just tailored to have Boston College go in. And I said on Twitter that I don't think that's the case, though. I think the Fenway Bowl this year, especially, wanted to set the precedent that they're not just going to pick Boston College every year. And they went and picked UVA. And that game looks like it's going to actually be fun. It's going to be two schools that have no head coach, but
True.
SMU and UVA. But Boston College, instead, they head to the Military Bowl and they face against an ECU team that is 7-5. And looking at them on paper, they have played well against some really good teams and, let some bad teams hang around with them. Mitch, give us a little bit of your take on the Pirates.
Yeah, so I'm going to need to watch a little bit more of them, but I've caught a few of their games here and there. Just, I watched them against Cincinnati the other week. I said this kind of in the announcement of the bowl game that they've basically they've beaten bad teams and lost to good teams. And even the teams that they've beaten that are supposedly bad, they've struggled sometimes. So like in their FCS game against Charleston Southern, they only beat them by 3. They only beat Memphis by 1. They beat Navy by 3. They took care of business against USF and Temple. No problem. Those were pretty big wins, but they beat Tulane by a good bit. They had a close win against Marshall, which is a pretty quality win, but they lost to Appalachian State, who's a good team. They lost to South Carolina only by 3, lost to UCF, lost to Houston, then got pretty beaten up by Cincinnati in their finale of their season. So, I think this is a really good matchup for BC, just because, at least from a BC perspective, in that, they have a pretty good chance of winning this game. This is a winnable matchup. I was worried that they were going to have to go to the Fenway Bowl against Houston, who, Houston didn't look awesome against Cincinnati, but they definitely gave them the game. And I was like, oh man, if kind of a struggling BC team has to go against, a team that could have won the American Conference, that might be a struggle, especially on a baseball stadium. But they get, a middling AAC team on a actual football field. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. And, I don't want to downplay ECU because it looks like on paper, like they could be a good matchup, because what I looked at immediately when you look at BC and you want to look at where you could struggle is you look at their offense and their quarterback, Halfley said on Sunday, throws the ball all over the yard, and he does. He's averaging over 260 yards a game. He's also a mobile quarterback. He's a lefty. Mitch, talk a little bit about this quarterback, and do you think he's going to be a big challenge? And maybe is there someone quarterback that you can compare other than him being a lefty? Because I don't think BC's played a lefty this year.
No, I don't think they have. And as a person who writes lefty but plays sports righty, I'll always be excited when there are lefty quarterbacks because they're so few and far between these days. But yeah, Holton Ahlers is an interesting guy. He was a pretty decently highly rated recruit. He had some offers from ACC schools, but he turned them down because he's from Greenville. So he wanted to stay home and kind of help resurrect the ECU program, which had some decent seasons back in the day, but then they kind of fell on hard times. But he has, kind of brought this program back from its deathbed. Again, they're not world beaters, but they're a solid program. He's got it kind of turned around. And yeah, he's not, the best quarterback. I think I'm trying to get a BC schedule pulled up here to try to give him a comp, but obviously lefty quarterbacks are going to present a different kind of challenge because they, you just have to flip the field based on their dominant hand. And he's mobile, but he's not, a killer scrambler like a Malik Cunningham or a Garrett Schrader. So in terms of I would probably say he's probably closest to maybe a guy like a Devin Leary, maybe, but just not as good. He's mobile enough, but he's probably going to try to throw the ball first, supposed to run, but he's a bigger guy. Like he's 6'3", 220. So, if he does scramble, he's going to be tough to bring down. But this ECU team is good. BC, it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means, but I do feel pretty confident about BC's how they match against the Pirates, especially because this offensive line for the Pirates is not very good in terms of pass blocking, and that's something that BC, they kind of need every advantage they can get. So, if they're able to get pressure on Holton Ahlers and force him outside of the pocket, I think that's a way they can succeed and eventually win this game.
And speaking of quarterbacks, I saw Jason Baum again. He's a Maryland guy, and I know he's really pumped for this game. And if he's listening, hey, Jason. But he was giving, this is the first time Boston College has played ECU ever. Mm-hmm. And he was giving some comparisons, not comparisons, but connections. And he had Frank Signetti being connected to ECU and Steve Logan. We all remember. He forgot the big one that I always remember, which is Dominique Davis, who was a quarterback for Boston College. If you remember, he was in 2008. He was the quarterback when they went to the ACC title game after Chris Crane got hurt. And then he transferred to ECU and threw for roughly, I think, like 40,000 yards or 50,000. It just felt like he was throwing like a gajillion yards. And then he ended up as a linebacker in the NFL. So who the heck knows? But I always remember him because it was during the lean Spaziani years coming after that where he was so good. But I do remember him, and Jason did acknowledge that. One of our fans mentioned that. But we'll talk a little bit more about this matchup and some other news in just a moment. All right, college football fanatics, have you heard about PrizePicks? PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. I love PrizePicks, and I know you will too. PrizePicks is the leader in college sports daily fantasy. They offer more college football props than anyone in the world and offers all the star players of the Power 5 as well as mid-major players like Desmond Ridder or other players you may not have ever heard of. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns and even interceptions for you. And for all of our listeners of Locked On Boston College, we have a special deal with you. If you sign up for PrizePicks and use promo code Locked On, they're going to give you a 100% deposit match up to $100 just for signing up. You just pick 2 to 5 players, the over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times. It is so much fun. I love PrizePicks. I've tried all the different daily fantasy sports. This is the best. PrizePicks is the best. They allow mixed sports entries. There's the best part about PrizePicks is that you can do it any way your mind can go, and you can have fun and just try it out. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Don't hesitate. Check out PrizePicks.com and use promo code Locked On. Or go to your App Store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. Thank you all for listening, and happy Monday. We're getting closer to the holiday season. I was busy all weekend long with trees and putting up lights. It was crazy at the Black household trying to get stuff done. Mitch, so we're talking about ECU here. I have to say, 2 things stick out to me when I think about this game, and immediately where I am kind of evaluating where this game could go. 2 big things have to go into my processing of this. First of all, Phil Dracovic, how is his wrist doing? Because I think, if he's getting a whole month or 5 weeks, because this game's on December 27th, to continue to, heal and get himself back together. And the other piece for me is the offensive line. This is the type of game I think, I have 2 thoughts about it, and I can't get my head wrapped around where they're going to go with this. This is the type of game where either that offensive line is going to blow away ECU because they're built to do that, like against a smaller team, or they'll struggle, and you go, what the heck is going on? So these are 2 things that I've been going through my mind. Anything like sticking out to you about this game?
Yeah, so I'll address the first concern about Phil Jurkovic first. I think that him having this, about a month to kind of just rest that wrist is going to be huge, because, Hafley has talked about, when he came back, that wrist was still at about 50%. and he was able to have some success. But, especially once they got into these colder weather games in Boston, that's going to make the ball. It makes the ball harder. So it's harder to grip it. And then obviously cold can kind of just mess with those, those finer injuries and your fine motor skills. That just makes, so that's kind of it's a double, or it's a compounding issue. So, both of those things kind of interplay with each other and make it just harder for him to throw the ball. And we saw how that affected his ability to succeed in the Wake Forest and the Florida State games. But, obviously it's going to be in Annapolis, Maryland. So it's not like it's in a super warm weather location, but, maybe it won't be in the Fenway Bowl where it'll be probably like 20 degrees at game time. So that'll help a little bit. And obviously those few weeks of rehab will be huge for him. In terms of the offensive line, again, I think this is an offensive line that we have seen have some dominant performances. We saw them really control Georgia Tech. We saw them control even Virginia Tech a little bit to some extent. They have a pretty solid defensive line. And we saw them dominate early in the season. They held Missouri. They held up against them, no problem. So I think that this isn't a defensive line that, in terms of ECU's defensive line, that I think BC should be able to handle. They don't have a ton of sacks as a team. I'm looking at their stats now. Their leading sacker is a linebacker with only 4. They have a few players with 3, a few with 2.5. So, when I was looking at the stats for this game, just getting kind of an early feel for ECU from a statistical standpoint, as opposed to the more tape side, which I'll be getting into in the next few weeks. I am not super impressed with them in terms of their pass rush ability. So in terms of their PFF numbers, their leading edge rusher has only 21 pressures, which is 11 hurries, 5 hits, 5 sacks, and PFF grades their sacks a little differently. But they don't really have that one dominant guy, a guy like Jermaine Johnson, who was dominant against BC. So I think that this should be a game, a kind of a get right final performance for this offensive line that obviously has had some struggles against the better opponents, but against a non-Power 5 team, they should be able to kind of own the line of scrimmage in this game.
And just to kind of to walk away from the ECU game, I have you here. Let's talk about this for a second. On Sunday night, they had their bowl preview press conference, and there, other than all the players and coaches saying how excited they were for this game, which is about 90% of what the press conference was, the one gleaming piece from this was Dracovic saying that he hasn't made a decision yet, and I kind of wanted to get your perspective on what he meant by that and where you think this stands.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. You and I were texting about this earlier. That I don't foresee it as, I think he's he's couching his words. I do think he's going to come back. I think that, this is him saying, I do want to talk to some, NFL people. Obviously, Frank Cignetti will probably have some NFL connections. Jeff Hafley should have some NFL connections. Tem Lukabu, all the coaching staff has NFL connections. So, talk to some guys that are at that level. See, hey, based on what I put on tape, where do you think I would go? And, at this point, I think that, he's, because of his injury concerns, because of these inconsistencies, which again, a lot of which can be tied to injury, I think that he would, be an early day 3 pick. And I think that with that information, he'd be like, all right, listen, I can come back next year. Ideally, I'll stay healthy and I can put together a fully good season, with a more cohesive offensive line, get another really good season with Zay and, put up some great numbers, put some good tape out there that I can, lift my stock such to a point where I can be a, top 100 pick, maybe even a second or first round guy.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. And I was saying, Mitch and I text back and forth a lot. As I was saying, he's going to hear what, as Mitch said, I agree with him. He's like a late third day pick right now. If he stays and does well and can get himself in the second or first round, the difference in money for Dracovic is astronomical in terms of the guaranteed money he would get in a contract. If he's a first round draft pick, my God, he's going to get like $30 million more than he would if he was a sixth round draft pick. So it makes a lot more sense for him to come back, because what we saw those last 2 games, there is not enough film out there for people to go, oh man, I got to get him early. You know what I mean? The last 2 games, I think especially made it look like he's not ready yet. So,
and I think that, NFL evaluators will know, they'll be like, all right, he's got a wrist injury, so he's limited as a thrower. And then there was a great game against Georgia Tech. There's just a lot of circumstances that kind of affect how you evaluate him as a player. And, you go back to, if you're like, all right, I want to see him when he's healthy, you go back to 2020, there was even some of the later games he wasn't fully healthy. But, I think that even at his best points, there's still some of your concerns. He has some work to do in terms of his ability to read the field, make good decisions. I'm still concerned about his ability to, just make accurate throws in the short game. Like, he's great throwing the ball deep and intermediate, but, I want to see some more consistency in the quick game. You're just hitting those very easy throws, because that's a huge part of the NFL, just hitting quick RPOs, quick slants, all that, that's a huge part of your offense. So I think teams are going to want to see him be more consistent in that aspect of the game.
So I heard earlier, are you predicting Zay Flowers will be back too?
Yeah, because, I'm looking at his stats right now, 44 catches, 746 yards, 5 touchdowns, pretty solid considering how limited the offense was for the majority of the season. But, I know that, receivers are usually a little different. They don't usually care about this much, but, maybe he wants to come back, get his degree. It's obviously one of the better degrees in the college football landscape. So, I think he would like a full year with Jurkovec that can get in the ball deep. We obviously saw them, have some great chemistry at points in the last few games. I think that, I think he'll be willing to risk the possibility of injury with the reward of, I could get, 80 catches, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns if I play with Jurkovec again this season. So I think that if Flowers were to declare, I think that he would probably be in the third round, maybe fourth, depending on just how testing goes, how the combine pro days, talking with NFL personnel. I think that he would be solidly drafted, but I think that if he comes back, has a big season, he could probably elevate himself to be a solid second round pick, maybe even a first if he has a really good season, gets rid of all those drop concerns, has some better consistency as a contested catch receiver. There is a world where he could work himself into being a first round pick, given his ability to, take the top off of defense one, and then also be a dynamic threat after the catch.
All right, Mitch, thank you for coming on. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE. In the coming weeks, I'll be doing a lot of preview work on ECU and kind of breaking down what they do on both sides of the ball and how BC is going to attack them. Hopefully, we'll be getting into some BC analysis as well. And obviously, the regular season for college is over. The NFL regular season winding down. We're starting to get into draft season. So I'll be starting up my scouting work, and I'll be sure to be posting my scouting reports on BC's guys who are entering the draft.
All right, Mitch, thank you very much. In a moment, we're going to get into basketball, the Sickos, and everything that goes into that big win on Friday. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 21 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar, the Built Bar. Filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugars, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. Get the both worlds, delicious and healthy. On Sunday, I was busy. I had to get up all of my Christmas stuff. We had a town-wide celebration that I took my kids to. I didn't find the time to eat anything. And then I got home and I was starving. And so while I'm putting up the Christmas tree, I had a Built Bar. It gave me the protein and energy I needed to sustain through this whole long day. It was just what the doctor ordered. And the best part, I ate it and didn't feel guilty about it because I knew it was low in fat and high in protein. You're friends with Santa, you want to tell them to throw a few Built Bars in your stockings with so many flavors. Didn't make anyone's Christmas morning a happy one. Want to cozy up with something warm? Here's a holiday secret. Dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa, let it melt a little, and give your beverage a bit of that Built Bar flavor. Plus, you'll have a nice melting Built Bar to go with it. Be sure to have a couple napkins on hand. Make sure to go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, 15% off your order if you go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. This is Locked On Boston College. Thank you all who are listening, and happy holiday season to all of you at home listening to Locked On Boston College. And for all of you who have made Locked On Boston College your number one show, the show that you have listened to all the time, I want to thank you. I got probably 4 or 5 of you out there that listen on Spotify. I know Spotify is not like the biggest listening site for podcasts, but some of you out there, Carlos, I know there's a few others that sent me messages that had Locked On Boston College in their top 2 or 3 podcasts for the year and their yearly wrap. Thank you so much. That meant so much to me. It really makes me feel like I'm doing something great here for Locked On Boston College, and I appreciate that. So there was so much news this weekend between the bowl game, basketball game on Friday. I can't believe that the last segment here has to be the basketball game, because I watched that game on Friday night. Boston College goes out there and they absolutely destroyed Notre Dame on Friday night at home, 73-57. And this was such an impact game for Boston College because, going into the season, you heard all the pundits. They're all saying, oh, yeah, Boston College, they're not going to win an ACC game this year. I saw someone say, yeah, they'll probably be around 4 wins total for the entire season. Well, Earl Grant gets his first crack at an ACC win. He goes out there and he mows down Notre Dame. And how's he do it? With his bigs. Now, I have been kind of about James Karnick for a while. He was very inconsistent last year. I didn't see what all the big hubbub was of him playing, but he looked incredible. He had 17 points, 13 rebounds. He set the tone right from the beginning. I think he had to hit a 3 right to start the game. He had one of those just standout performances from a game that meant so much. And it wasn't just Karnick. TJ Bickerstaff and Quentin Post, both big guys on Boston College, they had big games as well. They were just dominating Notre Dame on the boards, which was huge because the game before when they played USF, all the worry was that BC wasn't rebounding well. Well, they go out there, they play their butts off, and against a good Notre Dame team that was ranked 42 on the KenPom rankings, and a good rebounding team. They got some good guys out there. James Lazewski last year killed BC, and BC made him look foolish out there. And that is credit to Earl Grant and his staff. And I have said this all along, this is going to be a bumpy season. So enjoy the highs when they happen. And you should, because these games were big. And credit to the fan base out there. And I want to credit all the guys that started that, the Sickos movement and the Protect the Nut. I know there's a guy, Beacon Street Hoops and BC Ball Hot Takes, I think there's on Twitter, who kind of started that whole thing. And now it's become a whole movement. It's awesome. I haven't seen this much excitement about Boston College basketball since Al Skinner days. And this is exactly what you need. You need a coach that can do it, and you need the fan base to start to buy back in. And you saw it all go on during that Friday game. Earl Grant referred to the Sickos. You had all the people on the television broadcast mentioning about it. It's going to be becoming a movement, and that is how Boston College basketball is going to get back. You need to fill out Conti Forum. That place can get rocking. That place can become a difficult place to play when the student section is full. I remember when I used to go there. I'm going to sound like an old man now, but back when the Sean Marshall and Jared Dudley days, I used to go down there on a Saturday morning, and it was back when they were in the Big East, and the place would be rocking, and it was a tough out for some of those teams. You had good players too, but I think the Sickos movement is building something here for Boston College basketball, and with Earl Grant making a team that's not only playing better, but improving daily, that doesn't make the same stupid mistakes over and over again, that is going to get big buy-in from the fan base, and you're going to start to see results all over the place. And it's just going to spiral. So, they could go out there and they could lay out a dud in their next ACC game, and you know what? We're all kind of be in there for that, because that's just kind of what we're expecting. But what you saw on Friday from this Boston College squad is a team that's not going to give up on anyone. They're going to go out there. They're going to battle. They're going to battle. They're going to battle. They're going to battle. And I think that is exciting, because they may still be a Tuesday ACC tournament team, and they're probably not going to make the tournament. I doubt they'll do it this year. But isn't all we're asking for is improvement? Aren't all we are looking for is this team to develop, and for getting a coach in there that understands what Boston College basketball is about and how to develop this program? And it is so clear that Earl Grant does know that. And what we're seeing already is already this market improvement. I have a friend, Dave Scully, who was on a couple weeks ago from URI. He texted me, goes, man, you guys got a good coach. I do not want to see URI go down to BC next year because Grant, you got something in Grant. You have something in Grant. He noticed it. You're starting to see a lot of national people start to mention it. This could starting to look like a good hire. Now, pump the brakes a little. We're only 9 games or 10 games into this season. But it's still something to build off of. And Boston College basketball has not had that in years. This is so different than Steve Donahue and Jim Christian that it's palpable. Between the Sickos and the fan base, the improvement on the recruiting trail. I mean, Boston College for the class of 22 has a top 25 recruiting class. So you're enjoying what you're watching now. The talent is going to start pouring in here. And when they see BC playing better, it's gonna be cyclical. The fans will come, the recruits will come, the game will be playing better. You're gonna get that new practice facility. It's gonna all rev into one. You gotta get excited about that because I think this is all heading in the right direction. So we're gonna be talking a lot more basketball, especially now that people are into it. So for the sickos out there, I'm enjoying it too. So take care, everyone. We'll see you all again soon tomorrow. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC or at BulletinBC on Twitter as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to our podcast. We do this 5 days a week. We're also on YouTube. And we'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.